Hi students, good morning. This is John from class 10. Welcome back to online session. Today we are going to discuss about chapter number 8, Prose, Mijbil the Otter, from Language and Literature. Shall we move into the chapter? First, take page number 102. First, let's see about our author. This prose, Mijbil the Otter, was written by Gavin Maxwell. His period was 1914 to 1969. He was a Scottish naturalist and author, best known for his non-fiction writing and his work with otters. He wrote the book Ring of Bright Water in 1960 about how he brought an otter back from Iraq and raised it in Scotland. In the beginning of 1956, our author had one pet dog named Johnny. Soon after the author's dog passed away, he traveled to southern Iraq. He was too lonely without a pet, but wanted to keep an otter instead of a dog this time. He thought that keeping an otter at Camisferna was a good idea because the otters loved water. As Camisferna was surrounded by water, which was close by, it was the perfect place to try this new idea of domesticating an otter. On sharing his intention of domesticating an otter with a friend, the latter suggested that the author should get one from the marshes along the river Tigris, as otters were very commonly found there and were generally tamed by the Arabs. They had this conversation when the narrator and his friend were going to Basra. Upon reaching, they discovered that only the friend's mail had arrived. Arthur tried to connect to England via telegraph, and when there was no response, tried connecting through a call which demanded to be booked a day in advance. He could not connect with them because of a holiday and technical issues for another 3 days. Finally, his friend left and they both decided to meet after a week. His mail arrived after waiting for 5 more days. As soon as the narrator received the mail, he went to the bedroom to read it, only to find 2 Arab men with a sock which twisted itself again and again. They handed him a note sent by his friend, which stated that the otter was a gift from him. The otter was packed in the sock. Yes, next thing, the second one. The author considered domesticating an otter as the beginning of a new phase of his life that is still continuing. He developed deep affection and a unique bond with the otter that could only be understood by others who have ever owned an otter. As soon as the narrator opened the sock, the otter came out. He looked like a small version of the ancient imaginary creature, the dragon. He was completely covered in mud, and from beneath it, small patches of soft velvet fur could be seen. The fur resembled like the skin of a chocolate brown colored mole. He shook himself to get rid of most of it, but it took another month of continuous cleaning and washing to bring out his actual color. The author named his pet Mijbil, or in short, Mij. It took the otter little time to open up and get comfortable in his new surroundings. He was at a distance on the first day, slept with the narrator in his bed, lying on the crook of his knees on the second, and began to know his surroundings better on the third day. Gavin made a belt for the otter just like dogs have, to take on the lead wherever they went. When he first looked the otter into the bathroom, he discovered that Mitch liked playing with water. This is the character of otters. So they played with it and splashed it till the last drop in the bowl or bucket. Otters liked moving water, and when Mijbil saw still water, it seemed that he got angry and would sit in it, splashed it, and tried to overturn it from the bowl. Soon after, the otter became acquainted with the place. He escaped alone to the bathroom and tried opening the tap with his paws. Surprisingly enough, he managed to open the tap enough to get trickle of water and then more to get the full flow, since he started by turning it in the right direction. On other occasions, he could twist it tighter by moving it in the wrong direction, and ended up being disappointed when water did not flow from it. Soon the otter learned to follow the otter without a lead. It used to come to him when he called its name. Midge was very fond of playing. He would spend most of his time playing with the ball, dragging and pushing it throughout the room and going after it. Otters are generally known to be fond of lying on their backs and juggle with objects between the paws. Similarly, Midge loved engaging himself with marbles and never dropped one on the floor. He would take 2 or more marbles and roll them on his wide, flat stomach. After a peaceful time at Basra, it was now time to take Mijbil to England, and the author was anxious even at the thought of travelling with him. British Airlines refused to allow animals along with him. So he booked with another airline which insisted on Mitch being carried in a box not more than 18 inches square. It was not a direct flight from Basra to England. They had to first fly to Paris and then to London. Just as the airline demanded, narrator put Mitch in a box an hour before so that it got enough time to be comfortable and left for a quick meal. After the meal, narrator faced what he feared the most. The box was still and blood was dripping out of its air holes. He panicked and opened the box only to find the inner lining torn by frightened Midge. The narrator removed every piece of the sharp metal lining and cleaned the box. Till the time everything was back in place. It was only 10 minutes left for the flight to take off, and they had to cover a distance of 5 miles. Gavin placed Midge in the box and closed the lid with his hand, lest he should escape. The narrator cleaned the mess and hurried in a cab. The cab went extremely fast. He somehow managed to reach just before the flight took off, thereby annoying the officials. He got in his seat and gave Mijbil's food package of fish to the air hostess for refrigeration. He told her the incident which had delayed them, and she gladly understood while explaining him what to do next. Gavin developed extreme admiration for the air hostess, as she was very helpful. He took her advice and kept the box on his lap. He felt like kissing her hand as a token of thanks for her help. As soon as the author opened the box, Mitch jumped out of it and disappeared. There was confusion all around. Passengers were getting scared. A lady climbed upon her chair When he saw Midge beneath the seat of a white turbaned man, he attempted to catch Midge and ended up getting his face covered in curry, only to find that Midge had vanished again. Just then the air hostess extended the offer to help find Midge and advised him to go back to his seat. On being requested by the air hostess, the narrator came back to his seat and his eyes started looking for Midge. It was only then they heard some chitter while Midge climbed up his knee to reach his face. Midge had returned. Yes. Next, let's see about part 4. After an eventful journey, Maxwell and his otter reached London, where he has a flat. They stayed in London for a month while Midge had learned to engross himself with tons of games. He used to play with ping pong balls, marbles, rubber fruit, and a terrapin shell. Here, ping pong ball kept him engaged for about half an hour. Gavin's suitcase had got damaged while journeying. It had a slope from one end to the other. Midge would roll the ball from the higher end towards the lower end. Then he would rush to the lower end and hide, waiting for the ball to reach. He would jump up in the time and surprise the ball. Then he would catch the ball and rush once again to the higher end of the suitcase. Very excitingly, he would again hit the ball from the other end. Gavin would take Midge for a walk and exercise just like a pet dog. Midge ran around the streets in a particular fashion, just like school kids did. Like children form different habits of placing their feet in the center of each block that came their way, or of touching every seventh pole of the railing, or crossing out of the street light poles. There was a primary school with only the ground floor being constructed, opposite the author's flat. There was a low height wall, almost 2 feet high, that ran along the school's boundary. On their way back home only, Mitch would pull Gavin towards the wall, jump on it, and ran on its entire length at a high speed. He would attract the attention of the students and staff inside the school, as an otter is not a very common animal in London. The author found it strange that the residents were unable to recognize one. People had wild guesses as to what Mitch was. Otters belong to a group of animals called mustelines, shared by the badger, mongoose, weasel, stoat, mink, and others. People could guess all the animals of the group but otter. Most famous guesses were a baby seal or a squirrel. Some guessed that Mijbil was a hippo, beaver, leopard, walrus, and etc. The most shocking reply came from a laborer digging a hole who paused working while observing Midge. The man kept his tool aside, placed his hands on his back, and stared at Midge. His expressions of surprise and affront signaled that he would not tolerate any nonsense. He spat, stared at them, and asked the author in a loud voice, what was that supposed to be? Here, that refers to Mijbil. Now, our author ends this chapter. Shall we see the moral of the lesson? Yes, let's see. Owning a pet is a lifetime commitment involving considerable responsibility. Here, Maxwell, after the death of his dog, decided not to keep the dog as the pet, rather something else. He gets an opportunity to bring an otter which he named as Mijbil from Basra in Iraq. The lesson tells us about a great concern of a human being to the animals. The otter was a kind of unknown animal to the author. When it came first to him, it looked like a small dragon. In the beginning, Mijbil showed no interest in Maxwell, but later on, he lost his apathy and started showing interest in him. He enjoyed the water in the bathroom, small toys of the room, and other small articles in his surrounding. Thus, it was a kind of animal which has great understanding of the human beings. Now, I would like to explain about your written work. The first one, you have to find out the meanings for difficult words from this chapter with the help of your dictionary and write it on your homework note. And second thing, look at the picture. Complete your book back question in your classwork note with the help of your textbook. Refer page number 110. I hope you are all clear about this chapter. Yes, let's meet in next class. Thank you dears. See you meet again.